Hello and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Ekman, and joining me today, we've got Bill Leon,
Hello.
Bill Arsenault,
Hey guys.
and Hawk Ripjaw.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
So, we've got a lot of movies to discuss. This is a packed week, and it was a packed weekend for me because I wound up seeing 2 movies Friday night and then 4 movies, spending the entire day at the theater on Saturday.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
have that kind of endurance anymore.
Oh, it's a pleasure to do, man.
Yeah, you should never grow too old at heart. You should remain young at heart. Especially
But so when you do that, do you like just buy all your tickets at once? Say, I'm gonna here is $5,000. I'm gonna watch these 4 movies today, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yes,
when I get out of the
I
theater.
give them $5,000 and I say I will watch these movies.
I have a legitimate question, which is, do you break for lunch?
Usually not. No,
Oh.
I might have a little popcorn or something during one of the movies, but usually I just get food when I'm done.
Right.
But you pay for all the tickets up front, then go in and just watch them in sequence, or do you see a movie,
Yeah.
come back out, buy a ticket?
So the theater that I usually do the hopping at is this theater near me, where first of all I've been going there since I was really little, so they know me.
Mhm.
And when they see me come in and order tickets, I've never been questioned. Going from theater to theater, they usually just tear all my tickets. Lately, they've begun to get a little bit more choosy. Sometimes they just tear the first one and say, just come back here and have us tear the next one and whatever. So,
Mhm.
but either way, the thing I like about this theater is if there's a few minutes between movies, they've got so there's the main lobby, and then the IMAX theater has like a mini lobby, and in the IMAX mini lobby, there's a couple comfy leather couches. So, if I have 20, 30 minutes between movies, I'll just kick back and mess on my cell phone or something. But yeah, I mean, usually though I'm pretty good about trying to get the show times as close together as possible.
Yeah.
And you know what? It usually works quite well. I just I plan it in advance. I pull out. I actually make a spreadsheet and I figure out the times and the length of each movie, and I estimate 15 minutes for trailers, things like that.
I wish on Fandango or on the webs. Actually, you know what? I haven't checked if A-List does it, but if you go to AMC to buy a ticket, it will tell you exactly when the movie lets out, which is really convenient.
That's interesting. Yeah, I know some theaters have started to publish the actual start time of the movie, but I hear that that's been actively discouraged by the major studios because they want people to come in and watch the trailers.
Right.
And advertisements.
Yeah, and the advertisements. The ones that are doing the exact showtime tend to be the independent cinemas.
Well, AMC kind of goes halfway on that, and when you buy the ticket on the app, it says please allow approximately 20 minutes for the pre-show before the movie starts.
Right. Yeah, 20 minutes. Fuck. I mean,
It fucking is too. It's 20 to 25 minutes.
yeah.
It's outrageous. The
Here's-
thing that I hate about like Dolby and IMAX at AMC is that after you watch, and Bill, you'll probably know this about as well as I do. When you go to see something in Dolby, after all the pre-show stuff, then you get the AMC like, being at AMC is great. We've got chairs and popcorn and stuff.
the animated,
And then it has like,
talking about.
you what?
There's the red blob thing that they.
Oh, they got rid of that. Now it's like a magical current of magic that powers the Coke machine and reclines the chair and shit like that.
The power
It's pretty
of the
funny.
machine compels you.
It's just a bunch of energy now. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this guy is like reclining his chair and he looks at his girlfriend like, yeah! He's so pumped for it. And then after that, if you're in Dolby, you get a little thing saying you're watching Dolby where the blacks are clearer and the colors are crisper.
Whoa,
then-
whoa. We don't have to get
The black colors are clearer on the screen.
We don't need this hate speech.
Well,
And
what's
then
funny about
after that,
the Dolby
there's
presentation-
another thing It's what?
Yeah, they showed two fucking Dolby commercials.
Yeah, and the next one of that, it shows like a planet smashing into the ground, and well, no, it doesn't do that. It almost does, and then the screen splits where you're watching. Like, here's the difference between Dolby and regular, and it's like, yeah, I fucking know, I'm in here, and like this is why I bought a ticket for this movie, because I want to like it's so frustrating that adds another like 2 minutes on, which seems like nothing, but it's when you get to the end of the previews and you're ready for the movie to start, you're like, come on, let's fucking go.
That's the thing I like about this. The theater that I go to most, it's part of the Goodrich Theater chain. It's a very small indie theater chain. I actually just pulled it up here. Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Missouri. That's where they have their theaters. And they only have 4 in Illinois. So anyway.
No Chim Cham?
Yeah, no Chim Cham. I have no idea what that.
Bob only knows 4 states, and one of them is called Chim Cham.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, gotcha.
Well, speaking of IMAX,
but well, quick. I just wanted to finish my thought.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So what I like about this is they have just the required trailers, maybe a few commercials and stuff before the trailers begin, but nothing too long. 15 minutes is pretty dependable. And lately, they have right before the movie a warning to turn off your cell phone, and it says specifically that, this is something they just started this year, that if they catch you on your cell phone in the theater, you will be kicked out and no refund.
Good.
Yeah, I love that.
What if you're the only person in the theater?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think there'd be anyone to tell on you.
Oh, they don't just poke their head in and check?
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. This theater, they'll occasionally send someone out, but they don't. It's not like with Regal. They send them on fucking patrols through the cinema. Mm-hmm. No. Once in a while you'll see their head peek out, but they don't even they don't walk the whole thing. They don't count how many people are in the theater. They do have cameras in the theater, so I'm sure they probably count from there, but it's not invasive. Mm. That's the problem I have with a lot of the big theaters these days, is when they send the person to like walk the round in it while the movie's showing. It's distracting.
Mm.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So speaking of distracting, I don't know. It was a terrible.
Speaking of distracting, I was in need of one during Alpha.
Oh.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to let you take the floor and tell me why you did not like this movie, because I'm very curious.
Yeah. So I will, first of all, come right out and say it is beautifully shot. Like, it's absolutely astonishing. The cinematography and the color and just the way that some shots are framed with the silhouettes against the sky and that kind of thing. Visually, this movie is incredible.
Okay.
Apart from that, I thought it was extremely boring.
Okay.
I was absolutely bored out of my mind watching this movie because nothing really happens in the movie. Like, I mean, this stuff happens, right? But I didn't really fear for the kid or the dog. I highly doubted that anything bad would happen to either one of them at the end of the day, mainly because this movie is about the formation of the human and canine relationship, quote unquote. And obviously that wouldn't be a thing if one of them just fucking died in the middle of the movie with nobody to know about that bond. That was my main thing, is that I was just very bored. I know it was only about an hour and 35 minutes, but it felt way longer. Like, when he first meets the dog, I was like, it has to have been like at least 30 or 40 minutes by now. And then this movie just kept going with just, it felt like one of those really long Planet Earth type things, like that you would remember, like 15 years ago, maybe you had those IMAX things. It was like a 30-minute movie or so when IMAX was a new format, and it was like beautiful vistas and stuff like that. It felt like one of those movies, except it was 3 times as long.
Oddly, I was listening to a review of this recently, and someone else made the comment that watching the movie reminded them of watching those movies that were made for IMAX that were like the science movies and stuff. And I can see that argument. I have to respectfully disagree with you in terms of the movie being boring though, and the movie not having stakes. I felt for the situation there. I think they established very early on that this is life in the Paleolithic era is just tentative. And
so that
there's the scene around the campfire where they hear a sound, some growling in the background, and then suddenly a cat just jumps in and takes one of the kids away.
That was in the trailer, though.
A kitty cat?
Okay, well, I don't even remember that from the trailer.
It was in the trailer. I remember that. Yeah.
It was like the first thing that happened. And then, didn't the trailers come out for this like a year ago at least?
So
yeah.
So here's the thing. I didn't know that this movie existed until a week ago. Oh,
really?
Yeah.
That's bad. That's bad marketing right there.
I've known about this movie for at least a couple of years, and when I first saw the trailer, I was like, that looks not good.
It is worth noting that this movie was supposed to have been released over a year ago, and it's been delayed. And Zach, I was talking to him because he saw this movie, and he pretty much said that this might be the single worst marketing campaign for a big budget movie in
Sony, right?
Probably since John Carter.
Ooh,
because
is it Sony that put this out?
It's Columbia, which is
okay.
Yeah,
because it's marketed like a Sony movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They clearly don't know what the fuck they're doing with trying to sell this to people.
There's Coca-Cola product placement in the background.
So,
like the dad throws a spear and just slurps out of his
thermos or something.
His fucking bison skin Coke.
Oh yeah, his bison skin Coke thing.
I want to interject here and add that at its core, this movie is a survival movie, and in this case, it's about how a young boy in a tribe of cavemen who was stranded in the middle of nowhere and injured befriends a dog that was trying to kill him, and the two of them start this sort of tentative relationship where they're they have to slowly build trust with each other, and they help each other stay alive. I was really compelled by that story and the way so Cody Smith McPhee plays the boy named Keta, and Keta is this typical for this sort of movie. It is the chief's son who probably has never, he's been training to be, to go on hunts for years, but he's just finally earned the right to do so. And he doesn't quite get what that requires yet. There's a scene early on where he refuses to deal the death blow to a pig. And his father becomes angered with him because of that, because the truth is that in this world you have to take life in order to give life to the people around you.
What was with that gang initiation sequence where after he built his spear, everybody just beat the shit out of him for a couple minutes?
The way I took that was that that it was a tribal tradition or something. That here's the thing, that's not uncommon in Native American tribes. That happens. I'll give you one that happens to this day in South America. There is that tribe where in order to be considered a man, you have to go through this 2-day ordeal where they put these gloves on your hands that have bullet ants woven into them, and you have to do a dance while these bullet ants bite you. And I don't know if you know what a bullet ant is, but they're called a bullet ant because the feeling of being bitten by one is roughly equivalent to the feeling of being shot.
Right.
So
no, but the
fucked up initiation rituals that are out there, and it didn't shock me. I said, well, so that's the way they are.
Well, they do that in Los Angeles too.
Oh yeah, gangs, exactly.
Yeah, it's literally a gang initiation thing. And actually in Denver, Colorado, about a decade ago, there was a really dangerous gang going around, and the initiation was your final thing to get initiated is that you get savagely beaten for a total of 2 minutes.
Right. Well, and here's the thing: it's not just gangs. I mean, sports. You have oftentimes the incoming freshmen on a football team will have to go through this hazing rituals and shit.
Yeah.
It's human nature for some weird reason that, when you're bringing someone into a group, that person is the newbie and therefore someone to be mocked until they're able to prove themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was certainly unsettling when it happened, especially because the father, like, you could tell that he didn't want this to happen, but at the same time he knew it was like for the best or something, and so he looks away while all the rest of the male members of the tribe just beat the fuck out of these two kids.
Right. Here's the other thing too,
while the mom watches and cries too. By the way,
the mom is not crying in any scene in the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Every scene she's in, she cries pretty much.
Being fair, the only times you see her are times that have some pretty fucked up things happening. So.
Sure, yeah. So you said that the life in this era was really bad, and I think that's where the visuals of this movie kind of work against the event of the movie.
How so?
I meant to look this up a little bit, but I didn't. But this movie has such a crisp and clean look to it that it's kind of hard to buy into the actual stakes again of the event of the movie, right? So, everything feels like it's beautifully shot, and it feels like green screen, meticulously assembled. It is too crisp looking.
I've heard some people say that, and I disagree. I think the way that the way the film, like the landscapes were created, it has this. The thing about going out into the wilderness, there's a natural beauty to the wilderness, and that same beauty that that is stark and heart stopping is also incredibly deadly. And what I found fascinating about it was the way it took a moment to inject you into the nature of these surroundings, and you revel in the beauty of it, and then it shows the results of the weather and the animals that live there, and the terrain, and how completely oppressive it would be to have to march across that terrain, and the sheer distance that they have to march is fascinating. I got quite a sense of stakes from that, and also of the.
No, it just pulled me out of the movie. Like when he's hanging onto the side of the cliff and screaming for his dad. It wasn't like, oh my god, this kid's in danger. I was like, wow, that water splashing off of the cliff in IMAX 3D sure looks pretty.
So I'm going to give you one thing here. The sequence on the cliff, I think, might be the weakest element of the movie. And the reason being is that cliff, first of all, is the tallest fucking cliff I've ever seen in my life. That has this
yes.
great flat drop-off, short of, say, like a Pixar movie like Up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was... and the way that he's separated from the rest of his tribe is, he falls off the cliff and just happens to land on that tiny little nook on the cliff. That stretched credulity for me, and so I was that moment was where I was starting to pull away. But then after that, when you see the way the father's taking it, that performance that the guy who plays the father has, I think, really, it sells you back on the whole thing, because he's just pouring his emotions out. And
yeah, he gives a great performance. It's Johan Johansson, but not the composer that died. It's another guy that has a middle name.
Another guy who has a middle name, yes.
No, it's like Johan Carl Johansson or Johan. He's an Icelandic guy.
Poor Johans.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as the name is similar, but yeah, a great performance. I have nothing wrong with the performance. That's the thing, is that I don't think this movie is bad. I just really, really, really didn't like it.
Well, okay. You know what? I mean, I'm not going to debate with you on this too much longer because I think it's just a simple disagreement in terms of whether it was entertaining or not.
Yeah.
One thing I will say as a caveat is that I am someone who really thoroughly enjoys when a film takes its time to immerse you in the surroundings and the character, and I'm a big fan of sweeping epics and movies that spend that time establishing. And I understand that to some people that can slow the pacing down. That said, I felt that this movie went by at a pretty quick pace, but that's.
I think it would have been. I know that this is not something that would ever be produced by Hollywood if they tried to do this, but I would have been really, really curious to see a version of this movie with no dialogue, not even the subtitles, like convey everything about the culture and the events of the movie entirely through visuals, like reaction shots.
Fire?
What?
Have you seen Quest for Fire?
No.
So Quest for Fire is basically what you're describing, although there is language spoken in the movie, but there's no subtitles. It's set during the Stone Age as well. Actually, Ron Perlman's in it, so that's kind of badass.
So it's the Stone Age.
Quest for Fire is one of those movies that is kind of held up as like, that's the good caveman movie. There aren't a whole lot of good ones. But
Smallfoot has a chance, right?
Or what about Teenage Caveman?
It's Smallfoot, right?
Yeah.
The animated movie about Yetis.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
no.
or how about Caveman with Ringo Starr?
How about the Geico show that lasted like 2 episodes?
That had Nick Kroll in it.
Yeah, Nick Kroll in it. Because somebody thought that those Geico commercials were so hilarious, they should make a sitcom about Caveman.
Those commercials were funny, but the problem is you can't do a show out of it.
That is a funny 40-second joke, not a funny.
They work 15 to 40 seconds. They don't work any longer than that.
But
I think I tried to watch that pilot once, and the jokes, like, they live in the suburbs. It was, these guys don't belong here.
Yeah.
So let me give you the premise of Quest for Fire really quick, because I think you'll dig the basic premise. Basically, it's about this tribe of cavemen who are they worship basically this permanent fire that they sort of have to keep alive as they travel, and they are attacked by another group of much more primitive cavemen, and the fire is extinguished, and a couple of the group are sent by an elder to go on a quest to find fire. And so the whole film is about their goal to find fire, bring it back to the tribe.
All right.
Yeah, really interesting. It's directed by Jean-Jacques Annaud, who, if you're familiar with him at all, he also did The Bear. If you know
The Bear.
Yeah,
what kind of bear?
The Bear, do you guys know that one?
No, we don't. Explain it.
Oh, okay. So this one's easy to explain. It's a movie about a bear.
Oh, wait. Was this a recent movie, like a couple years ago? Or
No,
was
this is 1988. The movie was publicized as a kid's movie, but it's actually kind of dark. It's about a bear and its bear cub, and a couple of hunters, like Canadian hunters, like take the cub, and the mother bear is like hunting them down.
I remember this movie.
Oh yeah, it's a great little movie, and
sounds badass.
Yeah, Jean-Jacques Annaud is one of those filmmakers who's awesome at shooting big open movies. He also did the Sean Connery movie The Name of the Rose, which takes place in a medieval abbey, and Connery plays a monk. That's a good movie.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
And of course, Ron Perlman's also in that, and he plays the Hunchback.
Consider this my contribution for the week. I recently learned about a National Geographic documentary series called Monkey Thieves, about these monkeys in India that break into people's homes and steal their shit.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Sounds good.
That sounds like a great series, man.
It's like 3 fucking seasons. I don't think it's been entirely translated to English. I know there's a clip on National Geographic's YouTube channel. I discovered it from my Honduran coworker was watching some channel that broadcasts in Spanish, and they were showing it.
God,
That sounds like a show that you would see as like a fake thing on 30 Rock.
It sounds like something that you would watch on FYI, like Parking Wars or Shipping Wars or something. This is like Monkey Thief.
Yeah, I want to see more of this, and I hope to God, if it's not already translated in English, that somebody, does it.
You know what? I don't want to tell the story because I'll tell it wrong because I wasn't there. But Zach, when he was in Spain in college for a semester as a exchange student, and when he was there, he spent some time on the Rock of Gibraltar, and just asked him about the time he punched a monkey.
I was gonna say, yeah, they talk about Gibraltar and how there are monkeys there, and they're a problem.
Wait, he punched the monkey. He didn't shock the monkey, right?
Well, the monkey.
Oh, Peter Gabriel.
So that's a joke.
Don't you know you've gotta shock the monkey? Anyway, so what's up next? I'm sure it's not monkey related.
Yeah, I think we've talked enough about Alpha.
We've been monkeying around with this movie for far too long.
Well, I'll go ahead and make an 8th escape.
Oh, the puns keep coming.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one more thing I want to say about Alpha.
Oh, no.
I'll make it quick. So I was very impressed with the fact that when they used actual animals. I mean, yes, there's some CG animals in the movie, but like the dog, the wolf is actually played by this Czechoslovakian wolf dog. I actually looked into this. It's a real thing. It's a breed of dog that just came about in the last 50 years as the result of breeding like domesticated dogs with Carpathian wolves.
So what you're saying is this movie is historically inaccurate?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Vigo the Carpathian?
Yes.
His name is like Greg or Carl or something like that.
Greg the Carpathian.
I am the destroyer. My name is Luke.
I am the destroyer of pizza rolls. Greg the Carpathian.
Some who call me Tim.
There you go.
All right.
or in Kung Pao Enter the Fist, Betty.
Yeah, gotta love that one.
All right. So, speaking of Asian influences,
that's great, actually.
Oh no, well, that was all right. Yeah.
Crazy Rich Asian.
Rich Haitians?
From the director of Gem and the Holograms and 2 Justin Bieber documentaries.
Oh no!
Oh,
this movie,
director.
This movie is getting good reviews.
So I know I haven't seen it, but it looks great. I just like to dunk on John Chu sometimes for those movies. But he made the second G.I. Joe, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Retaliation is a big step up from. I mean, the first G.I. Joe movie is unwatchable. At least Retaliation's got good action.
The first G.I. Joe is kind of one of the reasons why I'm really not a Sienna Miller fan. That and American Sniper.
Yeah.
We were talking about this the other day in regards to me not wanting to have seen The Lost City of Z.
I'm just going to say this about John Chu as a director. Never Say Never, the Justin Bieber documentary, I had to write a review for the website. It is not a badly made documentary because it pretty much shows you why Justin Bieber's a dick, even though it's trying to make him look like, this awesome person. Because it basically it paints him as this person who his entire life has been planned for him by people who keep telling him he's awesome.
Right, and that explains why he's such an asshole. But I do want to say this: the way you're describing this movie, it's like this guy. He can build a house out of anything. He's got the best structure of a house. He's going to make a house out of feces.
So
I do have to give John Chu a little bit of credit, though, because while Gem and the Holograms was one movie for which I have almost nothing good to say about, which is rare, that was not his fault. He wanted to make a movie that was more in line with the original show, that was kind of like crazy and big and colorful, and the studio was like, no, you're going to make a fucking band movie that takes itself seriously.
So instead,
right. Yeah.
So he was not responsible for how shitty that movie was in general. I mean, he was because he made it, but also
all of his craziness into this. Because here's the thing, the movie's title is Crazy Rich Asians, but what you really should take from that is Crazy Rich Asians, because this movie is about just fucking gross wealth, like with so much wealth that you want to puke. It is
excess,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of wealth that makes Donald Trump look like a lightweight.
I like how the trailer looks really colorful, and I really love the costume and production design based on what I've seen in the trailer.
Yeah, first of all, this is an incredibly colorful movie. It's shot in Singapore, and for those who are not familiar with Singapore, Singapore is essentially a city that was built by Chinese immigrants who wanted to get away from the mainland China and build essentially a like hyper-capitalistic society. It is just insanely wealthy. The entire city is like a mausoleum built to wealth.
So more like Sing a Rich, right?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, all right.
Worth noting, this movie functions as both a movie and a travel show that advertises the fuck out of Singapore. I really want to go to Singapore because you see the food of the town, you see the sights, you see the crazy architecture. Yeah, it's.
So I just need to ask this actor in the film named Jimmy O Yang. He plays a character named Bernard Tai.
Okay.
How was he in the movie? He's a regular on Silicon Valley.
Oh, what? I gotta look up who.
Bernard.
I don't remember the name, but
okay.
Give me just a second. Up Jimmy.
Well, how was the romantic comedy aspect to this film?
Give me just a second. I'm trying to refresh my memory on who this guy is.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
While he does that, I'll say, like, based on the trailer, just to fill time, it feels like it's more of a romance with comedic elements. I don't watch a lot of romances, but I like, based on what I've seen in the trailer, I like that this establishes the couple as a thing, as an item, going into the movie, apparently, rather than a movie where it just throws two people together for the sake of a movie.
Okay, yeah. No wonder. It took me a moment to find a picture of this guy in his role. So, yeah, Jimmy O Yang's great in this movie.
Okay, that's good to hear. He's fantastic on Silicon Valley.
It's not a huge role, but it's an important role, and the scenes he's in are very interesting.
He's been on talk shows promoting this, which is why I had even heard about it. So I thought he had a bigger role in the movie.
It's significant. It's not huge, but it's significant. It's one of those movies that drives a lot of things in the movie, and it actually builds a lot on the backstory of the characters in it. So yeah, now as to this movie, yes, it is definitely a romantic comedy, and in fact, this movie is very much a classical old Hollywood style romantic comedy, something that harkens back to like Doris Day movies or like Breakfast at Tiffany's, things like that, where it's.
The Breakfast at Tiffany's mention is so ironic.
It is because the Mickey Rooney thing. Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking of the worshipping of Tiffany's.
Oh, yeah, actually that too. So there's two ways in which you could call it ironic.
Yes, but the Mickey Rooney one works too. I wasn't thinking about that. Yeah.
So anyway, the plot of the plot of the movie, you'll never. No one can say that it's like an original story. It's about basically this rich guy falls in love with this girl, and he never confesses to her that his family is fucking rich. They're getting to the point where they want to get married, and he finds out that his brother is getting married, so he decides to take her to Singapore to meet his family for the first time, and she gets there and finds out, oh shit, my boyfriend is rich as hell, or at least his family is. The big thing to note is he doesn't consider it his money. He considers it his family's money. That's kind of so it grounds his character in a much more empathetic position, because you don't feel like he's part of the problem. So there's a scene early on in this movie before you see his family, and before you see everything that is his family. The girl Rachel Chu is played, the lead is played by Constance Wu, and she before she goes to see her boyfriend's family, she has dinner at the house of someone that she met in college, and that house, her father happens to be Ken Jeong, by the way. And it's this lavish mansion with gold trim, and it's pretty fucking swank. And she brings up the name of her boyfriend, and everyone just like falls dead silent, and they look at her and said, "You don't mean his character's name is Nick Young, so the Nick Young." And it turns out that his family is not just rich, but they are pretty much the richest family in Singapore. And how Ken Jeong describes it is that, so in Singapore, there's a lot of new money. There's a lot of people who became rich within the last few years. This family became rich when the British were still colonizing. And so, it just gives you an idea of how long this family has had to acquire their wealth. Anyway, so as a typical romantic comedy breaks down, she gets there, she meets the family, there's some quirky characters within the family. The mother does not approve of her because she is a professor. She's, she works for a living, basically.
Okay.
She's not prepared to deal with the sacrifices that it takes to dedicate yourself to the service of building your family's wealth. And, it's a very, very standard romantic comedy tropes. But the way this movie gets by is on sharp writing and characters. There's all kinds of goofy, hilarious characters. You have Constance Wu's friend from college is just the most. It's that cute thing where a girl thinks that she's street as hell, and it's so obvious that she's a pampered, like, rich girl.
This was Awkwafina, right?
Yeah, exactly, Awkwafina. Wonderful performance. I enjoyed that. There, you also have Michelle Yeoh plays the mother, and the mother she is just wonderfully domineering. Where it's just it's so brutal. Like, just a look from her is enough to bring an entire room to dead silence. And I'm going to get into Jimmy O Yang here. His character Bernard Tai is. He's a cousin in the family, and he's basically he's the gay one in the family. And
everybody's got one of those.
Exactly, but here's the thing: he's the open one. He's the openly gay one, and the family and the culture in Singapore would normally just completely shun him, but he knows how to get things. He's sort of a fixer in the family, and so because of that, he's found a role, and so they tolerate him. And so the movie deals with a lot of family politics and the humorous ways that people get by on their daily life. I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm not normally someone who's the biggest fan of romantic comedies. I will say last week I saw Dog Days, and I saw a perfect example of a romantic comedy that does not work. So it was really refreshing to see a romantic comedy that follows a lot of similar stereotypical archetypes and tropes, but manages to do it right.
All right.
So that's all.
Jinx.
What's that?
I said all right. Hawk said all right, and I said Jinx.
Oh, I owe you a Coke.
So Black Klansman.
What the fuck? You two saw it. Like, I was the one that talked about it last.
You two saw it?
Yeah, you two. Bono.
What did Bono think?
And the Edge. Well, of course, Bono loved it. He's going to give money to the Black Lives Matter and everything.
I don't know. I saw the movie, but I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
Oh.
All right, calm down.
To me, this movie was.
That's the reference you end with.
To me, this movie was the sweetest thing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think this is Spike Lee's best movie in well over a decade.
It's better than Inside Man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but Inside Man was more of his commercial movie. This
I don't think Inside Man wasn't even a joint, was it? It was a film.
Yeah, right. This movie,
Inside Man was not a Spike Lee joint.
This movie, while it's very much, it's got the independent spirit, and it is mainstream because it was released commercially. It's very much a Spike Lee joint. You know, he's very much in his style and in his mode.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like so it's kind of different than Inside Man.
I think the last time Spike Lee made a movie this good was probably The 25th Hour. It's been so long since he's made a movie that's worked so well, and nothing has changed. This is still classic Spike Lee at his Spike Lee-est, and it's unsubtle. It's incredibly in your face, and yes, it's very like the racist characters. It's obvious that they're racist, but things click, and the story is compelling, and the performances are great. Topher Grace as David Duke is just hilarious because, I mean, if you've ever seen David Duke, he nails the guy's mannerisms and his look.
Topher Grace was very stressed out by his performance and having to play a racist, so to soothe himself, he edited the Hobbit trilogy into one film.
Oh, so it's like when Steven Spielberg was burnt out directing Schindler's List, he would watch Seinfeld.
Kinda, yeah. But I thought that was an interesting piece of trivia. Not only that, Topher Grace does stuff like that, but also that The Hobbit could be made into something good. Now,
did anybody read the comments Boots Riley was making about this? Because I didn't actually read them.
Boots Riley is offended, quote unquote, by the fact that Black Klansman is being touted as something completely factual, and he's accusing Spike Lee of sensationalizing the events just to make a movie.
I will say that I hate when movies use that phrase based on a true story, especially because the vast majority of the time they change the facts around for artistic and license. Now,
there are some things to consider
with artistic license being taken in a movie. I just don't want a filmmaker to put true story in the title. Then,
there are some things to consider about Boots Riley's criticisms, specifically that Spike Lee did in fact take money from the New York Police Department in order to kind of spruce up their image a little bit. So some people are saying he maybe used that as influence in his movie's representation of the police force, like specifically that end climax scene where they all kind of come together and get rid of that bad cop.
Yeah. Which was kind of a Hollywood thing.
They kind of tie it in a bow a little bit, a little nicely. This isn't a bad movie. I don't necessarily agree with those criticisms or anything, but I do think that there is something to be said about that and whether or not Spike incorporated some of that into the movie. Who knows?
I think that's conspiracy theory at the most.
No, I don't think that's too much of a stretch. I don't think
from the New York Police Department and spruce up their image.
No, he really did take money from the New York Police Department. He didn't steal it. They gave it to him specifically for PR.
This is Spike Lee. Here's some money. Make us look good in your movie.
Yes, that's what happened.
It doesn't seem like Spike Lee to take I guess, would you call that a bribe?
Yes.
I don't think it was.
That would be a bribe if that's true. I don't believe it. If that is true, I would like to see the evidence.
There's some news article about it where he he was given the money through a charity or something. So I don't know.
Okay.
The real connection here, I don't know if he actually did include those scenes to make it seem a little better or whatever. But Boots Riley's criticism was also that he makes the police look like the good guys completely.
Yeah.
You know,
Which
and
of course wasn't the case in that time period.
But the movie does do a good job in showing both sides. That there are some good cops, but there are also there's also bad cops, and there's also heavy racial bias and profiling inherent in police officing.
Yeah, I like that it showed a little bit of all of that. You know, there is that shitty cop that's kind of racist, and he eventually comes right out and says that he wouldn't, you know, he could get away with killing a black person. But then you have, you know,
then there was that scene where near the end where when he's trying to stop the bombing from happening, and the white cops start beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, but then you have, you know, the chief who is
and says, "Hey, he's actually a cop."
Yeah, and then you have Adam Driver's character, the Sarge in intelligence. You know, mostly the Steve Buscemi's brother. Like all of them are just, you know, they treat
Ron.
I was gonna say John, and that sounded wrong. Ron as a person, as he should be.
So I
like the nuance of that, as opposed to, I think, Spike Lee sometimes paints things as two sides of a spectrum. It was a lot more nuanced here, like you said.
Okay, so I've looked through a few articles here regarding this thing, and it's not related to the movie, from what I can see here. It says here the New York Police Department paid him for a program meant to improve relations between local law enforcement and the black community. And so basically he's leading this program. And the foundation approached and consulted creative teams, including Spike's agency, to help develop a public awareness campaign that would aim to strengthen the partnership.
The NYPD needs a marriage counselor for minorities. Who do we get? Spike Lee.
Yeah, really. Like, think of the one guy that would probably not take on that project. Of course, he would take it on, but I mean, let's think of that guy.
It's super weird, yeah, because if this was 20 years ago, he'd probably get a lot younger, a lot more rebellious, probably like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, right.
If you're the thing is, though, if you are trying in earnest to win over the black community, that's not a bad place to start.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not.
Now, he was paid a shitload of money to do it, but still the fact that
we're not doing this for money. We're doing it for a shitload of money.
Lone Star.
So the movie. I mean, what did you guys think of the big montage? Not just at the end, but also the intercut sequence with Harry Belafonte and Birth of a Nation.
That was a great sequence, the Harry Belafonte situation and the story. Honestly, I think that Birth of a Nation thing should be that story should be replayed in every history classroom in America, because
it's very evocative.
Yeah. I actually was I had to watch it for my film course that one of the film courses that I took in college.
The actual movie, Birth of a Nation.
Yeah, not the one from a couple years ago, but the D.W. Griffiths one that was like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
You were out of college when the new one came out.
And
yeah, I was. I always forget that the D.W. Griffiths one is like 3 hours.
Yeah, it was pretty long. Even for back then, it was like super long. The movies back then were like not even an hour.
Yeah.
This aspect of Birth of a Nation is the first 2/3 of the movie are a fairly it really doesn't address race in a direct way. It's that last third of the movie when it turns into a full-blown Ku Klux Klan recruiting film, basically.
Yeah, it's racist.
Totally, and it's insidious because it draws you in, because the movie has a compelling narrative of these two families during the Civil War and such. It follows very closely, and this was one of the first movies to have such a complex narrative woven into it, and that's why a lot of film historians consider it a very accomplished, artistically sound movie. The problem is this was all at the service of one of the worst. It's the same issue that people have with Leni Riefenstahl, which is, yes, you could make an argument for the effectiveness of what was done, but it was done at the service of evil.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that sequence in Black Klansman, where Harry Belafonte is essentially telling that story, is incredible because it really hits home why Birth of a Nation is such an awful thing, and how it reignited the Klan movement. The Klan movement was more or less on its way out prior to that, and
Right.
it became a recruiting tool and preyed on the ignorant. So,
What did you guys think of the dance club scene?
I love that scene.
How that was captured.
oh yeah,
That was,
Absolutely loved it.
that was magical, I thought.
Yeah, that was a fan. Some people said it went on for too long, but I didn't really think it did. It just kind of it kept going, but in a way
I
that
think you wanted it to go on longer, like because
the energy just kept rolling with it. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't a thing where it's like, okay, I get the point. It was just the energy there was so strong and so passionate in that scene that I had no problem with it being a relatively long singing sequence.
What's that Michael Cimino movie with the really long hoedown?
Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate.
Oh my
The
god,
really long
fucking
hoedown.
sweet hoedown. Jesus Christ.
I just want it to be longer. Make it longer.
It keeps fucking going.
I know.
And here's the thing: Michael Cimino is he was no slouch with extended scenes. The
Mhm.
first 45 minutes of The Deer Hunter is a wedding sequence. But anyway, so
I thought the one character that I thought was really interesting was Walter, the head of the chapter.
oh
the
yeah,
Colorado Springs chapter of the Klansman, because
not the asshole underneath him, but the guy who was actually recruiting.
yeah, the guy that's recruiting the glasses, he was a very. I want to be careful how I say all this, but he was very friendly, and he one of the first things he says is that they are a strictly nonviolent organization, and I thought it was very interesting how the movie kind of paints a few different images of members of the KKK. You know, you have Felix, who's just a crazy piece of shit, and then Walter is obviously a racist, but he's kind of more ideologically racist, which
I think it's a big move forward actually for Spike Lee in the way that they're characterized in this, because most of the times in the past where Spike Lee has represented racists in film, they have all pretty much had the same MO.
yeah.
In this case, though, the way he represented them is much more accurate in that there are all kinds of different levels of it. And, you have the people who are unintentionally racist. You have the people who are racist, but only to the point of, we just don't want to live next to these people.
Yeah.
And then you have the racists who are willing to strap a bomb to someone and,
Right.
or put it in an envelope. And so it, and that's, it's more complex than just, awful.
Yeah,
I
all villains, but it was really interesting how it made Walter a huge ally of Ron, White Ron, and he's kind of portrayed as a nice person, even though he is a racist. And like you said, there's all these different flavors of racist, and they're all they all have these views that are hateful, but they act in them in different ways.
Yeah, it really hits home. Like that character, if the cards had fallen slightly different, he might have been just an everyday dude, just nice guy. Maybe rather than joining the Klan, maybe he would have joined like the YMCA or some shit.
The YMCA, a totally different group to be prejudiced with, but back then, anyways, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. No. There was a character in this movie that it was played by an actor who I feel is being typecast. I forget his name, and I also forget his real name, but he's basically the overweight dum-dum of the KKK group.
Yeah, he was like always drunk, and he's just a fucking buffoon.
And he was in I, Tonya, where he played basically the same role.
Yeah,
racist.
if I'm not, that's Paul Walter Hauser and his character Ivan.
Yes. And I actually tweeted about the movie, and then he responded to it and was like, because I mentioned that this guy's getting typecast, and he was like, yeah, man, I do what I can, you know, but thanks for the sentiment, you know. And I was like, dude, you were awesome in that movie. You know, you're doing it right with what they're giving you, but I just wish you could expand. You know, they could expand you a little bit in Hollywood. But yeah, he was very nice.
He played a similar character, but he does it damn well. And here's the thing:
he does it really well. Yes,
I'm the first to say that typecasting can be a problem, but on the other hand, there are some actors out there who made a very wonderful career out of playing a very narrow margin of roles. Sam Elliott has played a cowboy. Even when he's not in a movie that's a Western, he's still a fucking cowboy.
He's still a fucking cowboy, yeah.
And guess what? He's damn good at it. That's
he's just gruff. Yeah.
He's got a mustache that launched 1,000 battleships. It's just
at the very least, yes.
It's the Helen of Troy of mustaches.
So my last question to you guys is, how did you feel about the final montage? When all was said and done, they grab their guns, they point it down the hallway, you see the cross burning, and then it cuts to footage of today.
It's heavy-handed, which, you know, that's Spike Lee. Do the Right Thing has a heavy-handed ending as well. But in its heavy-handedness, it says a very important thing, and so I thought it was I thought it was very useful, very you know, it was effective.
It was an unpleasant reminder that this is still happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And by the way, I just noticed that one of the supporting actors in the movie was Nicholas Turturro, John Turturro's son.
Oh wow, that's
oh wait, no, sorry, younger brother of John Turturro.
Oh, that's even better.
He played a character named Walker. I don't know who Walker was, but and I have one more thing to say about Black Klansman, and that is John David Washington. And it's very simple.
Great performance, yeah.
Oh, by the way, there's also a Michael Buscemi.
But I was saying Steve Buscemi's brother.
Yeah, that was the
Adam Driver's partner.
I guess I didn't catch that the first time you said it. But
Nicholas Turturro's brother, John Turturro's brother, Nicholas Turturro, he was the guy that ID'd Flip at the party.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right, so anyway, John David Washington, close your eyes and listen to his voice. I did that a few times during the movie. It sounds like Denzel. It's scary.
Well, that's good, because it's his son.
Yeah,
well, he's obviously a different kind of actor. Like he does it. I mean, both of them do the performances really well, but he has a different kind of cadence. You know, he has a different kind of way of walking and everything than Denzel in terms of the performance, in terms of how he carries the character. But his voice and his memory, yes, they're almost like Denzel's. Yes.
And he does carry himself differently, and I would argue the main reason he carries himself differently is much more of a hardcore athlete. I mean, Denzel was certainly, I would not accuse him of not being athletic, but John David Washington carries himself like a football player.
Yeah.
And you can always tell when someone's played football and, you know, and for a long time, because they carry themselves in a way that knows that, you know, they could plow a wall, you know, plow through a wall, basically.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Isaiah Whitlock Jr. had his wonderful cameo where he gets to say "she."
Oh yeah, that was pretty funny.
That's sort of that's his thing.
It's like Ron Simmons in the WWE. Damn.
Oh man.
I was hoping Bill Leon would catch on to that.
Oh, I got the joke.
Yeah. If you haven't seen The Wire, he plays in The Wire. He plays a local politician, and that's sort of his thing. Like whenever he gets pissed off about something, he does the extended "she."
And the APA ain't nothing to fuck with. So what's next?
All right. Speaking of that, what? No,
Summer of '84 is next. right?
Summer of '84. That's right.
Okay. Well, Summer of '84 is playing near me at a movie theater called, well, it's more of like a multidisciplinary arts center. But they show movies every night. Called
Multidisciplinary. What does that mean?
Basically, they do performance arts type stuff too, and sometimes bands.
If I saw multidisciplinary on something, I would assume it's an S&M show.
Actually, they do have showcases of drag arts,
drag probably burlesque.
Burlesque, yes,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
very natural to the area. Well, anyways, they're showing Summer of '84, and I was lucky enough to score a screener for it, thankfully. And this movie is by the collective known as RKSS, who did their previous film, I believe, was Turbo Kid. They may have done something in between, but I think it was Turbo Kid. That was
they did the Turbo Kid music video thing. That's sort of also a Turbo Kid short film.
Okay, and they're doing Turbo Kid 2. I actually
Nice.
I did not know that.
I hope they're going to.
It's in pre-production right now.
Pre-production, so don't hold your breath, but I think it's going to happen. Anyways, Summer '84 is a completely different type of retro nostalgic beast to the '80s than Turbo Kid was. Turbo Kid was kind of like taking on the whole, like visual aesthetic of the '80s a little bit,
right?
like,
but with the premise of like the Road Warrior.
With the Road Warrior, right, and the costumes, they had the stripes on them, they
absolutely, like
it just looked '80s,
yeah,
and not to mention the soundtrack. The soundtrack had some synth to it. The soundtrack had that famous song from the movie Rad, in the opening. That was very good, and it was a funny opening because he's riding his bike, but he's not really doing anything like spectacular. He's just kind of going up a little thing, and then it goes down a little thing, and it's like the music's swelling, and it's like, yeah, he's a badass, but he's doing kind of generic stuff.
Well, one thing I just to get it out of the way, I talked about it when we talked about Turbo Kid in the past, but I think it is so fucking adorable how Turbo Kid is like, Mad Max had cars. We're going to have bicycles.
Yes, the bad guys ride bicycles. Everyone rides bicycles because it doesn't require fuel. It's just you use your legs, and that's the future. So it's world building, but it's also very silly.
It's also much more realistic because gasoline.
And realistic, yes, because gasoline's very scarce. And the big thing in that movie was water, too. So it's gotten to the point where they're no longer looking for fuel. They're just looking to drink. And sustain themselves. So Summer of '84 is a much different beast. It takes place in the suburbs in a very real 1984, summer of 1984, in a little city, in a little neighborhood in Oregon. I believe they call it Ipswich, Oregon. And obviously, there's not much to do in that town, but it is a suburb, so there are some things. There's like a bowling alley, there's a movie theater, that kind of stuff. And so the kids are very rambunctious and very adventurous, and they're very much inquisitive. They go around, looking at things, being curious like kids would. These are like I won't say middle schoolers, like pre-high school. And so one evening they're playing a game of like tag outside at night, with flashlights, and one kid notices another kid hanging around inside his neighbor's home, who happens to be a cop who lives alone. And this kid he later recognizes on the back of a milk carton. So this kickstarts kind of a series of coincidences and possible conspiracy, surrounding this serial killer that's at large, who's kidnapping or killing kids. And he suspects that this neighbor of his, who's a cop, may be in fact be this killer. So he gets his group of friends, his ragtag group of friends, who are scrappy, and one's like a rebel, one's like a, more reserved, one's more like the sidekick, and one's the adventurous guy. And they go around doing little.
That is the exact cast of Stand By Me that you just described, by the way.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes, this movie has a lot of throwbacks, and kind of subtle in some ways. Some ways not so subtle, but in other ways very subtle. I would almost say it's like Goonies and Stand By Me meets some kind of slasher. You know, this movie doesn't really do a lot of slashing, but but when it does it, it does it. You know what I mean?
The press has been comparing this to Stranger Things a lot.
Stranger Things makes sense as a comparison, but there's no supernatural aspect to it.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing like from the third dimension or anything like that in this movie. It's very much, but it does share the adventure. It does share the kids getting in over their heads. You know what I mean? And there's also a little subplot involving the girl next door who used to babysit for the main character, and how there's kind of like a romance there, sort of, or like a playful little first love kind of thing, you know. And the movie is very much about kind of the anxiety of growing into being a teenager and having to have responsibility, and there being consequences for your actions that you have to live up to. And when the consequences are very difficult and hard, and they come, you know, they happen, and you know, this is a movie where, you know, these kids are investigating a potential serial killer, and so of course there's going to be heavy consequences no matter what. Either you're accusing an innocent guy, or you are on the trail of someone who doesn't give a crap about your life. So there's a lot going on in that picture. But the majority of the movie is basically just these kids coming up with sneaky ways and thinking they can get away with it, thinking they're invincible, that they're not going to be seen, they're not going to be observed, that they can get in and out and go in the house. They can put up a walkie-talkie next to the wall. They can, you know, bring a camera downstairs. They can do this. They can do that. You know, they can dig up the garden. You know, and
this movie like a Goonies or a Stand By Me or like The Sandlot, where kids actually get killed.
Well, I don't want to spoil too much, but I will say this is a movie where kids could potentially get killed. Like, there is, like I said, consequences to actions. Kids could get hurt in this movie. Kids are getting hurt in this movie. There is in fact a serial killer in this film that is killing kids. We don't see it too much on screen until late in the movie, kind of, but because there has to be like a little thing that happens, you know.
Tell me it's Clint Howard.
No, but throughout the film, it's mostly just these kids having this fun adventure that goes from child fun and very quickly goes into you know, starking maturity and frightening reality, you know, and it hits you like a brick wall too when it happens, because there's almost like this movie has that. There's this thing that happens in blockbuster movies where you have multiple endings, like in The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or something, where it's like the movie should have ended here, but then it goes on, and then it has another ending, goes on, has another ending, that kind of thing. This movie kind of does that, but it plays on it in a way to tell something a little deeper. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like these are multiple endings. It's more like they're part of a string, you know, like a thread that's leading to the actual ending, but it's lulling you into this feeling of false safety, you know, like, oh, everything's going to be okay, and then something happens, and it's like, well, what's going to happen next? And then something happens, and then what's going to happen? You know, it's like one of those kind of things, and it pulls the rug out from under you very much a couple of times, and that's damn near perfect. I can't say that I felt this movie was better than Turbo Kid. I kind of rated it comparing it to Turbo Kid. I felt Turbo Kid was more my jam, so to speak. I mean, you'd think this movie would be, but I think I compared it to Super Dark Times, which came out last year, mm-hmm. and I felt that film was more philosophically my thing and a little vague, but also with purpose. This movie has a lot of purpose in it, but it's not ambiguous or vague. It's very clear cut what's going down. So I like the fact that Super Dark Times kind of played with it, with narrative and with how everything unfolded. Whereas this movie is pretty, relatively straightforward, except for a few moments towards the end where things ramp up and then calm down, then ramp up and calm down. And but even within that, there's playfulness. So I struggled giving this either a 5-star or a 4-star. I was like, man, what's the difference between those numbers? There's the half, but
One.
half of what? I mean, like this you're right, exactly.
One.
Like this movie's pretty damn good. However you cut it, the difference is one. Yes, it's good no matter how you cut it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to settle on 4 for now, and maybe I'll come back to it later and up it. Because me, I give movies 5 stars like candy to kids. Candy at Halloween. Like I'm just that's just me. I love movies. And I could find something to love about just about anything. And I've been on a roll lately. I've seen a lot of really good movies. So my Letterboxd has been mostly positive films. I think the last movie that I saw that was like a 3-star was Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Your Letterboxd review spread looks like a set of stairs.
A set of stairs going
up to 5 stars.
Let me ask you, can you think of any other movies like that are directed by a directing trio? Like an established trio where
I don't know about a trio. I know they're directing duos, obviously, like Phil Lord and like those guys, of course.
The Coen
brothers. Like what?
The Coen brothers or the Wachowskis.
Yeah, the Coen brothers, the Wachowski crew.
But Turbo Kid and this movie both have the 3 directors: Francois Simard, Anouk Wissel, and Joanne Carl Wissel.
Yeah, and they're very good at this. I think they even did an interview recently where they talked about their 80s influence and style and how they kind of like to toy around with that kind of nostalgia and everything. And I kind of said or wrote in my review that something to the degree of where Turbo Kid was kind of celebrating the 80s, this movie's kind of like a shot of reality. Like the 80s wasn't really all that glamorous because, in fact, there were some things in it that not to say that it was getting into Reagan politics or anything crazy like that. It wasn't. It was more about childhood and maturity and consequences. And my thought on it was that it was kind of more getting into things of like the problems of growing up that are universal. That almost anyone can appreciate, and it wasn't. It's not all green on the other side. The grass isn't necessarily greener over there, and things aren't as rosy as you remember them. Things have always been pretty much the same. I mean, there have been some differences in eras, but for the most part, problems for people stay consistent generation to generation. And in this movie, it happens to be kids on a quest and reality hitting them in the head like a fucking sledgehammer. That not to give you guys any ideas, there are no sledgehammers in this movie, but that's not the weapon of choice. But yes, I would highly recommend this film if it is playing near you. It is currently in theaters. I believe it'll be hitting VOD very soon, though. It's shot wonderfully, just like Turbo Kid. It's got a great visual palette, and it lends itself to there aren't really jump scares, but there are genuine chills. Like where they're sneaking around a house, and then out of the corner, someone comes out, and it's like the girl next door, and she's like, "What the fuck are you guys doing here?" And there's no cue for it. There's no hint that that's going to happen. It just happens. Mm-hmm. To me, are the best chills is when it's like it just happens. There's no ramping up of the music or the quieting of the music, and then it goes up. Where it's like, okay, this is where you got to put your fingers in your ears. No, that doesn't happen in this movie. It's very much toying around with those established styles and playing them up really in the best way possible. So yeah, go see this if you can. If you can't, wait for it on VOD. I'm sure it's going to hit very soon. And support it. I mean, the RKSS do some really great work.
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to check that out as soon as I have an opportunity. All right, so the next movie that we're going to talk about, and I can pretty much cover this fairly quickly, is Christopher Robin.
I still haven't seen it. I'm so ashamed of myself.
I'm ashamed of myself, too, for not going to see this, because when I saw on YouTube the trailer released and just like the thumbnail, I was like, okay, live action Winnie the Pooh, how good can this be? And then I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, they got Jim Cummings, and that pretty much sold it for me. And now I want to see it.
Well, yeah, and Jim Cummings, for those who may not be familiar, not only does he voice Winnie the Pooh, but he also voices Tigger. So he voices two characters who couldn't be more different.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it fascinating.
That man is so talented, yeah.
Yeah.
So this was co-written, I believe, by Alex Ross Perry, one of my favorite filmmakers, right?
Mm-hmm. No. Yes.
Yes, it was. Yes, I believe so. Right?
Oh, yes, he was. Okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking Tom McCarthy, but he also did.
Yeah. No, Alex Ross Perry did The Color Wheel. He did the most recent Golden Exits. He kind of deals with like New York characters or characters in that Eastern Coast area who are sarcastic and kind of shitty to each other. You know, it's that kind of humor that's very dry, but it's also very passive aggressive or outright aggressive.
Perfect for writing Winnie the Pooh.
Right, you would think that someone else would do it, but he did it, and that was what was very surprising to me. So I'm kind of interested to hear what you guys have to say about it.
So Christopher Robin, at its heart, very much follows the Hook template, which is, you know, the very basic element of it is about a person who.
I think I can help you out here. What if Christopher Robin grew up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. What if Christopher Robin grew up? That's exactly it. And he grows up and he becomes, you know, businessman, and he pretty much forgets what, you know, made him what made him who he was, and how to have fun. And, you know, that's something that's been done before, but this is just a movie that just oozes charm. It is like from every pore. It is a charming fucking movie, and it is because of the way they depict all of the different characters. The classic Winnie the Pooh characters are all here, and they all have their business in the movie. And
I do have to get my fan questions out of the way. Is Gopher in the movie?
No.
No Gopher? Okay, fine.
Gopher's great.
Yes, Gopher is great.
That is a fairly obscure character.
It depends on whether or not you grew up with the '90s cartoon, because
I like Gopher better than Kanga and Roo.
That's true. They offer very little other than
this. So yeah,
Tigger's sort of a father figure to Roo. I guess that's sort of the element of their existence, but Gopher. What the fuck?
Now that said, there's plenty of Eeyore, and that's all I need because I fucking love Eeyore.
Is it Brad Garrett voicing Eeyore?
I
don't think so.
Eeyore is Brad Garrett.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Good.
It took me a moment to find it because I was looking at the normal, like the live action cast, and I realized they separated it from voice.
Oh, right.
So, anyway, what's fascinating about this movie, though, is this is definitely a movie made for adults who grew up watching Winnie the Pooh, because while this is not while this is clearly not like a kid's movie or anything, there's a childlike mindset, but also an adult aspect to it. So Christopher Robin grows up and he so the time frame that this is set is during the war, and he when he comes of age, the war is just beginning, World War II, and he goes off to fight, and he returns, and so that's sort of a way of showing how much of an adult he's become.
He's like Roger Waters' dad.
There's literally nothing more sobering to the human mind than dealing with humanity killing each other. And so he enters the world of business, and for years, the concept of his childhood and the fantasies of it leave his mind. And one day, Winnie the Pooh just shows up at his door in the middle of the city, and there's, Christopher Robin's like, how did you even get here? Because, the tree that he would go through to get to the 100-acre wood is like way the hell over in Sussex. That's the name of it. and
I'm sorry to our UK viewers, we are not geographically familiar with your territory.
Well, I mean, I'm better than most, but
he's better than me. I'll give him that.
So anyway, so Winnie the Pooh has this line that I think is really great for fantasy. Is as far as the entrance, how do you get here? And Winnie the Pooh's like, I guess the entrance is where it's needed. And meaning that he's in this position where he's he's starting to, his family is being put second after his job, and Winnie the Pooh shows up to to sort of show him again what it was like once being a kid, and because Christopher Robin now has a kid of his own, and he's not giving her the kind of childhood that he had himself.
Yeah.
And the way all of this is done is by showing how the all the Winnie the Pooh characters affected him in his life, and his love for that and for make believe. And what I find fascinating about the movie, though, is the world of Winnie the Pooh is treated as being actually existing, even though there's make believe elements to it. It's like these are actually living creatures. So it's not like he's dreaming it or that it's like Neverland or something. This is like there's scenes where later in the movie where they go into where they get into London and people see them and they're like, what the hell am I looking at?
I thought that was a really interesting decision to make them. I haven't seen it yet, but I think it's interesting that they did that, making them real, because to me, that's kind of fucked up now that he just left them behind in the 100-acre wood and just grew up and forgot about them.
Now, to be fair, the way they write that he was basically forced to, because his parents, when he got to a certain age, shipped him off to boarding school, which amongst upper middle class British families and even like just lower middle class, boarding school is a very common thing, and in those days in particular. Sending your kid away to boarding school was very common, and so and the problem with boarding school is the first thing they do is they try to make you stop being so childish.
Mm.
It takes away.
Hawk's like.
Well, it's true though. That's
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, his reaction is, oh.
No, I know. I mean, I'm agreeing with you. It just kind of sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, bummer for you, huh?
Yeah.
Lost your job. Bummer.
So, needless to say, the movie is, by no means is this movie saying anything particularly new. But what it does is it provides a compelling narrative with an adult slant to it that lets you revisit the Winnie the Pooh characters in a way that you've never quite seen them represented before, and that's with sort of a real world context. I really enjoyed that. I particularly enjoyed the scenes the scenes within the 100-Acre Wood, and there are these wonderful moments like so Christopher Robin's been away for so long that Eeyore is convinced that when he sees Christopher Robin for the first time, Eeyore is convinced that he's a heffalump. And he proceeds to convince everyone else that Christopher Robin's a heffalump, and they're definitely afraid of those heffalumps, and it's a very funny segment of the film, and I loved the girl that plays Christopher Robin's daughter. It's just perfect example of childlike innocence that you can't help but your heart breaks for her because her father just doesn't get it, and it's a charming movie. It's very much worth watching. Don't expect it to blow your mind or anything, but you will watch it and you will enjoy your experience.
I have a feeling I might enjoy it more than the average person because for me, Winnie the Pooh, under Disney, I can't speak to the books, but it's never lost that childlike innocence for me, and I really appreciate the fact that the Disney company has never well, no, they have. The Book of Pooh. They've done some shitty Winnie the Pooh stuff, but the main stuff that they released, like the last 2D Disney animated film was in 2011. It was Winnie the Pooh, and it was basically a sequel to the 70s Winnie the Pooh movie, and it's fucking great.
Oh,
it's fucking great.
Yeah.
But Hawk is probably the only person that can relate to me on this. I was like 13 or 14 years old, and I got Kingdom Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm playing Kingdom Hearts, and there's a side quest in Kingdom Hearts where you go collect all the pages to the Pooh book, and there's all these 100-Acre Wood mini games. I fell in love with that because it took me back, and it's the weirdest thing. I'm a fucking rebellious, angsty teenager playing a PS2 game, and I'm like, damn, Winnie the Pooh really is tugging at my heartstrings right now.
Yeah, I mean, I love Winnie the Pooh. I always have.
Yeah, man.
2011 movie. I almost cried at the end because I was so happy that something that good was able to happen to such a beloved property. Like, it wasn't commercialized really, and it was more Winnie the Pooh, and I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah,
I have almost all of the old Winnie the Pooh VHSs. I have the Many Adventures. I have the Search for Christopher Robin. I have the Tigger movie, the winter one, like the Christmas one. I mean, like. Winnie the Pooh has been an absolute, probably the most prominent staple of my upbringing in terms of media.
As much as I love the Many Adventures film from the late 70s, for me, like, my era of Winnie the Pooh will be when Jim Cummings took over as the voice of Pooh and Tigger, and like the whole, like the TV show, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is. Did I just say that twice? What the hell's the TV show called?
The TV show was. I don't know actually.
The new Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah,
the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. That was great, and for me, like, that's my jam. The fact that they at least got Jim Cummings. I don't know how much of the other voice cast from that show is involved, but like, I remember when I saw the trailer, hearing Jim Cummings do the voice, I was just like, I'm sold.
So I just realized I'm gonna watch some fucking Winnie the Pooh. I'm gonna watch some goddamn old school Winnie the Pooh tonight.
Oh yeah, dude! I rewatched the '70s movie not that long ago, and it's fucking great. Just because, like, it's that perfect balance of the innocence of Winnie the Pooh, but also they're a little experimental with '70s type stuff. Because like the Heffalumps and Woozles segment in that movie is just trippy as shit. Some people say it rivals Pink Elephants from Dumbo. I think honestly it's superior to Pink Elephants from Dumbo.
Yeah, fuck Pink Elephants. I hate Dumbo.
Well, I don't hate Dumbo, but
I hate Dumbo.
Why? That's not a discussion for right now. We'll talk about that when Tim Burton comes out with his Dumbo film.
With his fucking Dumbo movie written by Aaron Kruger of Transformers 2 during the writers' strike.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sole credited writer, Aaron Kruger. Dumbo by Tim Burton. Nothing about that sounds not shitty.
I'd rather watch Freddy Krueger's Dumbo.
That sounds awesome.
But yeah, it actually does.
Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Yes.
All right, so
Speaking of nightmares,
Hey, Slender Man.
Slender Man.
All right.
Slender Man.
which I have to say this because I made the joke to Hawk earlier, which is that Slender Man is both a internet meme and a wonderful name for a butt plug.
Yes.
Oh.
It's also a horrible piece of shit movie that I hated every second of.
So, yeah, butt plug shit. Yes, we get it. All right.
Poop.
Oh, I didn't do that on purpose, but
Yeah, Winnie the Pooh. We also talked about.
Oh, feces all
We need
around.
the poop.
So Slender Man.
Slender Man is a movie directed by Sylvain White, who made The Losers and Stomp the Yard. And some
Wait a minute. That's the baseball team, Nick Swardson, John Heater movie. No, that's the Benchwarmers. I'm sorry.
Stomp the Yard is the dance movie. Remember
The
back
Loser-
like in about 2016, there was about like you couldn't walk 5 steps without finding a dance movie like Step Up and
Bring
Stomp
It
the Yard and
There's a lot of them. I know what you're talking about.
Losers was that DC adaptation, right?
The Losers was a comic book adaptation with a fantastic cast that just did not deliver on the quality of that script.
Yeah, great cast, awful movie. It was I think it was either DC or Vertigo. Yeah, it had Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Chris Evans, Idris Elba. What?
I think Watchmen had done well for Warner Brothers, so they were like, "What else you got? Graphic novels by DC? The
Yeah.
Losers, okay."
Let's do it.
Can we get Zack Snyder on this one? No, we can only afford this other guy.
No,
I will have to say though, like I love the moment in The Losers where the bad guy, I think Idris Elba turns out to be the bad guy or something, and he's driving away on a motorcycle, and the sniper guy shoots the motorcycle's gas tank, and it blows up and launches him forward into the engine of an airplane, and he dies. Like that's a fantastic death for a villain, and I applaud that.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Slender Man has none of that fun stuff. It's really, really, really fucking bad. So this is like I'll describe what happens in this movie, but this movie doesn't even really have a structure to it. Just kind of like things just happen and they happen and they happen, and then the movie just ends. So it's all these high school girls. One of them is played by Joey King from Wish Upon, which Ken and I both can credit Wish Upon as being one of the all-time classics for hilariously bad horror films.
Joey King, by the way, no relation to Benny King.
No.
Yes.
Is Billy King white? Because Benny King was black. I wouldn't have assumed, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, continue with Slender Man.
So Slender Man, all these high school girls, four high school girls are like, haha, we're friends. And, one of them is Joey King. One of them is the girl from When the Bow Breaks.
That's such a good memory from high school, being like, haha, we're friends.
Okay, so like that's literally what they are. Like this movie was written by some fucking asshole 50-year-old man who thinks he knows what high school girl sounds like. And they find out some of the guys are going to get together. And they're like, what are you going to do? A circle jerk? And it's like all this like really shitty meme stuff that they say. And then they find out that these guys are going to watch a video summoning something called the Slender Man. What was that, Bill?
Hashtag blessed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, memes.
It's stuff like that. And they find out the guys are going to summon this thing called Slender Man. And then when they're hanging out too, drinking vodka and just hanging out, they decide they're going to do the same thing. So they go to this like stupid looking Reddit kind of website, and there's just a link that says Summon Slender Man. And they click on that, and it's just like this Ring style montage of creepy stuff, like ooh, a tree in the woods, oh my goodness, and flashing Illuminati triangles and eyes and like scary montage PG-13 black and white shit. And then this is where the movie really starts to have issues, because they say, oh, when you hear the 3 bells ring, after the 3 bells ring, you'll hear Slender Man will appear to you. And the next day, one of the girls, they're all going to like this field trip to a cemetery or something for some reason. And then one of the girls, who was the older sister in Ouija Origin of Evil, the redhead, she just like stares into the woods. She's like staring off into the trees. And then there's a shot of the sky and then a shot of police officers walking around the area and Joey King's character calling her like, "What are you doing? We're all so worried about you." So this girl disappears, but the sequence of events is so poorly edited that you don't really know what's going on until you have that line. Then they get her laptop, and Joey King's character, she gets an instant message from a random person saying, "Oh, if you want to get your friend back, you got to offer something of value to Slender Man and like do a sacrifice of something that you treasure to get her back." And Joey King's character she's like, "This is my mug I made in 5th grade pottery class." That's the thing that she brings.
What?
Because the Slender Man wants your fucking mug.
Exactly.
I want your
fucking mug from fucking pottery class in 5th grade. The other girl
bring me the ashtray you made.
Exactly. I want your pottery.
Bring me the birdhouse you made in woodshop.
Exactly. And the other two girls, there doesn't make a little more sense. Like, "Oh, this is my hat for some." I can't remember what her reasoning was for the hat. And the other girl's like, "Oh, this is the only picture that I have of my dad." It's like that makes sense. Bring that thing. And then they're like, "Okay, so you put the blindfold on and you listen for the 3 bells, and then he'll come and take your stuff and you get your friend back. But don't look him in the face because then you'll go crazy or you'll die. But it's different for everybody." And it's like, okay, well, either you go crazy or you die. Like, which one is it?
That's a wonderful excuse for lazy screenwriting, by the way.
It's colossally lazy screenwriting. And then one of the girls, like, she hears the bell and she like grabs her blindfold. It's like, "Good." She like looks around, and of course she sees Slender Man's face, and then she goes crazy. And this is conveyed in a scene where one of the only actually mildly creepy scenes in the movie is she gets a video call, and she answers it, and she's watching her phone. And it's a video of somebody walking through her front door and up the stairs towards her room. Like that's kind of creepy. I like that. And then she's like the door. She opens the door and there's nobody there. And then all of a sudden, the Slender Man grabs her from behind and and starts choking her out. And she looks in a mirror, and then she looks at herself in the mirror, and she's actually choking herself with her own hands. And then you never see her again in the movie except for like one scene at one point.
I've heard there's some characters who just drop out of this movie.
Yep. So when this movie was being made, obviously there was that, if you watch the HBO documentary Beware the Slender Man, there was this event where these 2 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin, they stabbed their friend like 19 times or 9 times. Like they stabbed somebody a lot of times.
We talked about it last week because I had just watched it, mainly because of the publicity and kind of hype surrounding this movie. And I don't remember the exact amount of times that she was stabbed, but anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
More times than somebody.
The term is a fuckload.
Yeah, lots of times. To appease Slender Man, this crazy-ass 12-year-old girl wants to please Slender Man by stabbing her friend. And so the father of the intended killer is coming out against this movie, saying that it's sensationalizing, traumatic events. Or not sensationalizing, but it's profiting off of traumatic events.
Which it is.
I mean, I don't know if I go that far. It's a movie about an internet character that is removed from the events of the stabbing. I don't know if that, but that's a thing. Is that this dad was really upset about it, so the movie ends up removing any actual violence whatsoever. There's no violence in this movie. There's scary stuff and people get grabbed, but nobody gets actually killed on screen. So the girl stabbing herself in the eye in the trailer, that's not there. The girl who's coming out of the forest with her mouth all bloody and the police are running towards her, that's not in the movie. That entire character does not exist. The guy jumping off of the building, he's not in the movie. That was a boyfriend, one of the girl's boyfriends. She goes over to his house. This is another example of the really bad screenwriting in this movie, is that, at one point, this girl's like, you know what? Slender Man's not real. It's probably just some creepy guy in a basement. just like scaring people. And it's like you're fucking 2 of your friends have disappeared. This is a real thing, and you're just blowing it off as nothing, and you're gonna go hang out with your boyfriend. And when she's there, they're kissing on the couch, and all of a sudden, he does this really weird thing where like it's this really shitty post-production editing trick that looks like his face is like his like multiple shots of his head just like flying around like really like I don't really know how to describe the effect of it, but
spinning.
Not spinning. It's kind of like picture like the actor is moving his head to the left and right and forward and backwards, and then they edit all of that together really, really, really quickly, so it looks like his head is just like.
Oh yeah, that's an old one. That's been used a lot. Red Letter Media used that actually years ago in the Grabowskis.
Yeah, and he does this really funny noise, and it's probably the funniest scene in the whole movie because it just looks so stupid, and it's supposed to be scary. And then after that, she's like, "Well, it's this video I watched. Promise me you won't watch it. Promise me." He's like, "Okay, I promise, Jesus." And then the next day he comes into the classroom like wearing a beanie and hunched over, like totally different from where he was before. And then that's the last scene you see him in. And I think he was the guy that was jumping off the building in the trailer, but he just disappears from the movie also. And that's just kind of how this movie does. It just kind of like, oh, there's a scary thing, and then the girls are talking, and then another scary thing, and then just the movie just ends.
Yeah.
And there is the requisite horror movie where the girl goes and does the research in the library and finds out more stuff about Slender Man, and then she dies later, and then the movie ends when one of the other girls, the last remaining one, she runs into the forest. She's like, "Take me, sacrifice me, and save my sister." And then Slender Man turns into a tree and tree spider thing and chases her, and then turns her into a tree also. But this is like it's fucking shitty. There's one part that I thought was really funny. Actually, I say that the boyfriend thing was the funniest part. This other thing was funnier, where she's walking through the hospital where her sister's at because her sister went crazy also for whatever reason. I think she watched the video, I think, is what it happened. She's walking through the hospital, and she sees these weird things in every hospital room. And one of them, I lost it in the theater, and so did most of the other people in the theater, which there was only about a dozen, but we all thought it was really funny. There's a girl sitting in a bathtub, and she has like super long hair. This hair is like 15, 20 feet long easily. And there's an orderly just slowly combing her hair and staring out of the doorway. And then she keeps walking, and it's in the lobby, and everybody is apparently possessed by Slender Man for some reason all of a sudden, because the orderlies are all staring at her, except for one of them who is typing very slowly with 2 fingers on the keyboard, like each of her index fingers, just click, clack, click. And I think it's supposed to be scary, but it just looked really stupid.
Well,
I don't know. Do you have any questions about Slender Man? I mean, I saw this like 2 weeks ago, but I really wanted to say something because it's been eating me how much this movie sucked.
Yeah, I have no questions or concerns.
Yeah, me neither. I got no feeling whatsoever about this movie.
It sounds like garbage.
Sounds like exactly what we were advertised.
There's one shot that I thought was really good, and towards the very beginning, the girls are on the laptop looking for clues about their friend, and behind them there's the shadow of Slender Man, very, very slowly just rising up along the wall and the ceiling. There's no music, there's no camera focus on him, you just see it in the background, and I thought that was surprisingly effective, and I wish that the rest of the movie had that kind of nuance and that restraint to actually be creepy instead of just PG-13 teen horror.
Right.
But maybe next time.
Next time, Gadget. Next time.
Yeah. So that's all I have to say about Slender Man.
All right. Well, how about Mile 22? What do you have to say about that?
Let's take this baby home.
I loved Mile 22. Not because it's good.
Yeah, it's not.
Because it's good.
I thought Mile 22 was fucking hilarious.
There's a sequence in the or a shot in the fucking trailer near the end where there's this woman and she just jumps, she leaps with a knife in her hand, and she's like yelling, or she looks like she's screaming, and she's about to stab a guy in the neck, and she's doing it in like super slow-mo, so slow that you would think the other guy would have time to react and get the fuck out of the way.
Xena Warrior Princess?
It's like she's going from one side of the room to the other, like.
You're talking about Lauren Cohen when she stabs the guy in the neck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens. There's in that scene. There's a guy that corners her in a room, and she's like, "Please don't hurt me. I have a kid." And she's got this piece of glass hiding behind her back, and then he comes towards her, and then she stabs him in the neck. That doesn't kill him. He proceeds to throw her across the room multiple times and almost kill her until she's saved by a man. But this movie basically is they're like, oh, the first option is diplomacy, the second is military. We're the third option, and they're like they're called Overwatch. They're this really highly funded covert military operation that does attacks on stuff and infiltrates things and.
It's very well thought out.
I think Elizabeth.
Well, to be fair, this is actually based on an actual CIA organization called the Ground Branch of the Special Activities Division. Okay. And Peter Berg actually spent time with interviewing some people who took part in this organization. So,
how much time?
Like a day.
Clearly enough to write a
like 20 minutes,
or not to write one because he didn't write it, but
he didn't write it. So Mark Wahlberg's character, like this is organization, Mark Wahlberg's character, it feels.
You're asking about Mark Wahlberg. Would you like to know more about that?
Alexa.
Alexa, shut the fuck up.
You asked about Mark Wahlberg.
That was my Amazon Echo.
Wow. That happened.
I thought there was an actual woman in your room. Would you like to know more?
She's just hanging out. Answering questions. No, that was my Amazon Echo. I think something what I said came across as Alexa, and then she picked up and started saying, but I've muted it, so it's fine. That was really creepy.
Yeah. So Mark Wahlberg plays.
His name is Mark Wahlberg, and he is. Here's the thing: is that
actually his name is James Silva, and I know that because the opening credits of the movie repeat the name over and over and over again. It's so obvious from just the opening credits that they set out to make a movie into a franchise.
What I was saying before my Bluetooth speaker interrupted me was that he feels like a literary character that started on the screen. Like it's like, oh, he's badass, he's smart, he's cool, he does things that that you want to read about and stuff like that. But he's been touted by Peter Berg, the director, as the first bipolar action hero. And apparently, the people that made this movie don't really seem to understand what bipolar means, because in this movie, his brain moves very, very quickly. He has ADHD or something. He has a rubber band on his wrist that he snaps when his thoughts are getting too quick for him to collect. Yeah, and he's also a fucking...
It's what? If there's any disorder.
It's what?
If there's any disorder you could diagnose Wahlberg's character in this with, it's autism.
Yeah, I mean, he's a savant for sure. And he's also a fucking crazy asshole that just verbally abuses nearly every other character in the movie. And that's all he does.
That also just sounds like Mark Wahlberg in general.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like extra Mark Wahlberg in this. And this is why I thought this movie was so funny, is because, basically the plot of this movie is that this Indonesian defector played by Iko Uwais from the Raid movies.
It's a non-existent but real sounding country called Indocar.
Yeah, exactly. And this guy is like, hey, my country is planning an attack on your country. There are 5 locations of this cesium dust, which is called fear dust because it's really bad, I guess. And I will tell you where I have this disc that has the locations of these bombs, and I will only unlock this disc if you get me safely to America, because this movie takes place in this country. And so there's a scene where this hacker girl, she's like, "Oh, I'm trying to hack into this, but it's if I mess it up or if I go too long, it will actually delete itself." And Mark Wahlberg goes into like this minute-long screaming monologue about, like, he quotes Hiroshima. He's like quoting literature. He mentions Mark Zuckerberg and MIT, And another character is like, oh, but Mark Zuckerberg didn't graduate. He's like, I wasn't talking to you. And then he gets back to work on this one lady. And it's just like, he's such an asshole in this movie. And it's fucking hilarious because all he does is yell at people. That's all he does. And everybody else is kind of a dick too. Everybody in this movie just is always telling other people to go fuck themselves. Ronda Rousey tells people to go fuck themselves. Lauren Conrad's character.
Personality throughout this movie.
It's what?
Alpha male throughout this movie.
Oh, this movie has machismo. What's the word? Machismo?
Machismo.
I don't know how to say it. Machismo. It's coming out of the goddamn seams. At one point somebody's running and Ronda Rousey grabs the guy by his shirt collar and slams him on the ground and then shoots him in the face while he's on the ground. And John Malkovich is the leader of Overwatch, and he's called Mother, and all the operatives are Child 1 through 5.
What?
Yeah, so he's like, Child 1, disengage.
Not to be confused with Child 44, that shitty movie that came out a couple years ago.
Who directed that? Wasn't it somebody big?
Oh, I forget who it was.
It was Andre the Giant, right?
I remember seeing the movie in theaters, writing the review, and it sucks. Daniel Espinosa.
Oh, I know that name, but I can't remember.
You gotta show respect.
Directed Life last year. Life.
Oh, I really, really liked Life.
Yeah, it was good. It was fine.
All right. So anyway, what happens in Mile 22? What's the deal?
So basically, this guy Iko Uwais is like, okay, I will unlock this disc if you get me out of this country and into America. And these other two security officers or whatever, they come to the embassy and they're like, you need to give us this guy because he's dangerous. And they're like, no, fuck you. And they take him across town. It's 22 miles, hence the title of the movie, to get to the airstrip and get him out of America. And everybody wants him dead. So it's a lot of people trying to kill them and stuff. And a lot of them killing other people. And then I said the same thing about Slender Man, but this movie doesn't really have a really coherent 3-act structure. It's missing its third act. There's a big action sequence towards the end of the movie. There's like 20 minutes left or so, and then the rest of the movie happens and then it just ends. Ken, does that sound accurate? Like, did you detect a lack of structure in this movie?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Definitely lack of structure. Definitely.
I put this in my review, which should be published like in the next couple days. But I said that the experience of watching Mile 22 is like watching two movies laid over each other while two people scream separate things in each of your ears.
Yeah.
Because this movie makes the editing in this movie makes Olivier Megaton look like Wes Anderson.
Oh.
Wow.
And then maybe that's a bit extreme to say that, but it is so incoherent and so hard to follow. Like it's like 90 cuts between a punch and a connection. Even the sound editing is awful. There's a scene where Mark Wahlberg is talking to somebody, and it keeps cutting back and forth between them, and the mix of the audio just keeps shifting. It just sounds so strange. Did you get that same experience?
I don't remember that. But also, I tuned out of this movie after a while. I was in the theater, and I was just like, I was losing it, and it was the first movie I saw in my marathon, and so I think I was out of necessity trying to preserve my strength.
Okay. It's just to drive home how big of a dick Mark Wahlberg is. It's probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. They're in like some kind of like restaurant or bar or something, and Ronda Rousey's character, she comes over and she sits down, and somebody gives her a little cupcake. And he's like, what the fuck is that? And she's like, it's my birthday. And he reaches over and he smacks it off the table and says, no birthday cake. And there's no reason for him to do that, but it was so funny. Like, he's just so angry and fucking mean to everybody. He just knocks Ronda Rousey's cupcake off the table. And there's like 50 cuts of it hitting the ground.
Which, by the way, doing that to Ronda Rousey, that's tempting fate. You're going to get your ass killed.
That's all right. She dies later anyway.
That's
speaking of which, there's like 2 or 3 sequences of like a badass last stand type of things. Like, all right, you're dead, so we're just going to leave you here so you can kill enough people to give us a head start.
mm-hmm.
At least 2 or 3 of the characters have that end. And then the villain, this security officer, he just somehow just keeps appearing where they are. Like, he teleports. They're at a hotel or a restaurant or whatever, trying to transport this guy to the airstrip, and he's just fucking there.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a bizarre movie. I really think that it almost has no idea how much fun it could be having.
Right.
Because it takes itself so incredibly seriously. And there are moments where they cut to Mark Wahlberg's character, James Silva, having this interview after the mission, and they're like references to like modern political things. It's like, you think you know collusion? It
takes a very heavy-handed attempt to tell some political, to fill the movie with political commentary, and
it's really ham-fisted. Isn't there, like, towards the end, there's like a couple of shots of like old interviews or rallies from Obama and George Jr.
Yeah.
Where they're like praising the military and stuff like that.
What the fuck is that?
Okay. It's just like it's, and then so Lauren Conrad's character who stabbed the guy in the neck, she is trying to fight for custody for her daughter, and her ex-husband is played by director Peter Berg, and there's like an app on her phone called Wizard, and it reads her emails and texts and phone calls, and if she like cusses, then it like cuts her off.
Which is a real app, by the way.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's a real app that has no bearing on the plot.
There is an app that does that.
Because it's so stupid. Okay. Because at one point, obviously her ex-husband is an asshole. He texts her and says, "Oh, your daughter wants or whoever it was, she wants the recipe for the cupcakes," and she's like, "Blueberries, you fucking asshole." She types it out. It's like, "Hey, dumbass, don't use curse words in your text messages. Like, I know you're angry all the time, but show some restraint in what you type." But you think this would kind of lead to some kind of character development where she learns to not be so angry and soften the professional side of her to have a better connection with her daughter.
I think the person who needs to be less angry is Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. But nobody in this movie has any character development. Like, they just kind of do their mission and the movie just fucking ends. And there's a big plot twist. There's a setup for a sequel. They're probably going to make it. I hope they do, because this was shitty, and I want to see more of it. Although the sequel is going to have a different writer, so maybe it won't be quite as stupid the second time.
Did Iko Uwais get at least some badass sequences?
Yes, yeah, it's edited to hell.
Yeah. I mean, there is some cool stuff. Like, there's a part that's like really, really crazy where he slams a guy's head through a car window and then drags his neck back and forth on the shards of the window. But like Ken said, most of it is just edited to shit, and it's really hard to see what's going on.
The main problem is Peter Berg kind of thinks that he's Paul Greengrass, and he's not.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, there's no sense of space and location to the action scenes. Like the quote unquote finale in the hotel, and I say that quote unquote, or apartment building, I say that quote unquote because it's not the finale. It takes place like 20 minutes before the end. It's more like a end of the second act type sequence. A huge shootout fighting thing, and it keeps cutting between the different characters and what's happening in their specific fight. But you really have no idea where they are in the building, where they are in relation to the other characters, where they are in relation to the enemies. Like, there's just no coherence at all to the action scenes, which is disappointing because I think the action would look really cool if it was just edited better. And I get the sense that Peter Berg had this movie get edited like this to kind of match the thought process of Silva, and kind of like, oh, it's rapid, it's so fast, like you can't even figure out what's going on, to kind of like be in sync with how his mind works. But it doesn't work at all for a regular ass viewer of the movie who is just trying to see what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what else there is to add. It's worth watching just for Mark Wahlberg yelling at people, because It's just funny. Like the movie was written by somebody who appears to have learned the F-bomb yesterday.
I guarantee you, by the way, that cupcake scene is going to be like an internet meme in no time. If it
I sure hope so. There's one character who this is really funny. This had everybody in the theater going because actually most of the people here thought it was pretty funny too. I don't remember the exact line, but basically he's like the director of their operations or whatever, and he was like, "Of all the fucked up shit that we've dealt with, this is the shittiest, most fucked up shit on the most fucked up, shittiest, fucked up." And then he just like keeps using the same two words until somebody cuts him off.
Yeah,
like it just like cuss city with this dude on that line, and it's like Jesus, like this is written by a fucking high schooler. It's everybody's just angry and yelly and cursing, and it's pretty great. It's a terrible movie though.
Yeah, terrible, and I can't recommend it, even as like unintentional comedy. Honestly,
I can honestly.
I don't think it's funny enough.
No, it's not funny enough, but it's also only like a half hour or hour and a half. It's like a 90-minute movie, so it moves really quickly. So it's kind of worth streaming. It's just it wasn't boring. I'll give it that.
Put that on the box art. It wasn't boring.
It wasn't.
Give it that.
Yeah. But
Hawk Ripjaw.
Yeah. Hawk Ripjaw, everyone.
So we're in the we're in the late summer doldrums for film releases now.
Yes, the movie's coming out this week.
The Happy Time Murders.
Yeah.
Which is currently at like a 33 on Metacritic.
Yeah, I'm semi looking forward to this because of its low rating. I want to see like how bad it potentially is, but some of it looks a little funny.
I do like the TV shot where it's like, oh, because Happy Time Murders is so vulgar, we're showing you the only scene safe for television, and it's the main Muppet detective cleaning his apartment.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's kind of funny.
Have you guys seen the poster for Axel?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things for Axel, and it looks that I'm calling it right now. That is this year's Max Steel.
Yeah. Oh, totally. If you look at the poster, it looks like a half-naked man embracing a metal dog.
That reminds me of the Bumblebee trailer.
Yeah.
Where
right.
Haley Steinfeld jumps into the water and she's like holding Bumblebee. And somebody on Reddit was like, "Oh, it's the shape of Bumblebee."
Yeah.
Because she's totally gonna fuck that robot.
You never know.
Yeah. I mean, Travis Knight, that guy.
Got a tailpipe, you know.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
You say Bumblebee's got a buzz.
Ugh.
He's got what?
Buzz.
It's yeah. I'm gonna see Axel, unfortunately.
Well, I don't
know why
last time. I don't know. I get
the depths of my cinematic masochism apparently know no bounds. I have no reason to see Axel. I'm not reviewing it. Nobody wants me to see it with them. I have no interest, but I'm going to see it.
Now, on my side of it, I'm getting Papillon this weekend.
Yep.
It intrigues me. I don't know whether the movie's going to be good or not. I understand that when it premiered, it was getting sort of mixed reviews. But I love the original Papillon, and so I'm very interested to see what they did with this remake.
It was directed by Michael Noor, who made nothing that I recognize. The Wild Hearts, Northwest, R, Key House Mirror. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's got Rami Malek, and I really like Rami Malek. So.
And Charlie Hunnam, and I will defend Charlie Hunnam.
I won't.
Well,
actually, I liked. Well,
I
say I liked it. I liked it. Ironically, the King Arthur movie.
Lost City of Z. Great performance.
Yeah, he was good in that.
It takes a really good actor to do what he did in that movie, and So as a result of that, and I've seen him in a few other movies where I think he's done very well. I consider him underrated, and I think he just gets a bad rap. He gets bad choices.
He's not given good movies. I'll give you that he's a good actor, but did you see the King Arthur Guy Ritchie movie?
Oh hell, I haven't seen a Guy Ritchie movie in years. I've given up.
You should see you should get it really sauced up and watch the King Arthur, directed by Guy Ritchie, because it is really something.
I've heard it's something.
It's pretty. It is so fearlessly excessive that it kind of. I encourage a watch of that because it is just so goddamn much as a movie. It was the intended first of 7 films, which obviously didn't come to fruition when the movie grossed.
That's too ambitious for Hollywood.
It's what?
Well, that's way too ambitious for Hollywood. You got to have like a property like Harry Potter to pull that off.
Yeah. I don't know what they were thinking, because this movie was budgeted like well over $100 million and made less than that. So,
yeah,
that's
Well, I'm looking forward to movies like "Support the Girls" by
that looks good. Yeah,
Wachowski. Yeah, right. It should be. I don't know if it's releasing this weekend, but I don't know if it's expanding after that.
it's not playing near me.
Yeah, it's not playing near me either, but I'm trying to get more information on it from Magnolia Pictures. So hopefully I'll have something to report by next week as far as its expansion.
Yes, just fuck it, kick some ass, man. Get it playing everywhere.
Yeah, really.
Tell them.
It looks pretty good, actually. It looks like an artsy version of Waiting or Clerks. A more artsy version of Clerks. You know what I mean? Like something more modern, but still shot like with delicacy. You know what I mean? But still funny.
And I really like Haley Lou Richardson, so I'm that's like the main reason I'm saying it, because after Columbus, I think that she's definitely someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And she was in Split as well, I think.
Oh, yeah? Oh, was she one of the girls that was kidnapped?
Eden? Yeah.
Yes. Eden? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, she was.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's another movie to look forward to, Glass, but that's next year.
Yes.
Yeah. February, I think. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. January is Hellboy.
It was supposedly they may release that a little later, but
oh, you think they might? Do you think they might delay it?
They might by like a month or two just to get it out of January. Fuck you, it's January. You know.
Unending. What is it like? Unending trash.
Endless trash.
Endless trash. That's right.
All right. I think we've exhausted our topics for today.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a way to close out this podcast. Like, should we